Hello, everyone. Today, the story that we're reading is called Stella LouElla's Runaway book by Lisa Campbell Ernst. And in this story, it is Library Day. So maybe you can make some connections to this. It's time for Stella LouElla to go to the library and return her book. It's due today, but she can't find it anywhere. And I know that it's happened to a few of us in school sometimes when it's library day. So let's see if we can follow the clues and figure out what book is missing and where'd it go. Stella LouElla's Runaway book. On Saturday morning, Stella's library book disappeared, as if in a magic act. Stella was in a tizzy. She ran through the house searching frantically for the book, looking in the backs of closets, on the tops of shelves, in beds, baskets, and bathtubs. She looked in toy boxes, toolboxes, even cereal boxes. The book was gone. "Great balls of fire!" shouted Stella's father. "What's going on?" "My library book has disappeared," Stella cried. "It's due today by 5 o'clock. How will I ever tell Mrs. Graham at the library that I've lost it?" Stella burst into tears. "Simmer down," her father said. "Think, where did you have it last?" Stella squeezed her eyes closed and thought. The hammock out back," she gasped. Stella ran to the hammock with her father close behind. The book was not there. Her little brother, Sam, sat digging in the dirt below. "Sam," their dad said, "Stella's library book is missing. It's due today by 5 o'clock. Have you seen it?" "Yesterday," Sam nodded. "It was a good book. I liked the bears." "Where is it now?" asked Stella. "I left it on the front porch," Sam answered, "by the mailbox." Stella ran to the front porch with Sam and her father close behind. No book in sight. Just then, Wally Hanson walked up. "Mr. Hanson," Sam called, "my sister's library book is lost. It has to get back to the library by 5 o'clock. Have you seen it?" "That was yours?" Wally groaned. "It was mixed in with the mail, and I wasn't sure where it came from. Good book, though, especially when they go on a walk." So far we knew that this book has bears and a walk. "Where is it now?" asked Stella anxiously. "I left it at the house on the corner," he said. "I thought it might belong to the little girl who lives there, Tiffany Ann." Stella ran to the corner house with Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Who else is always close behind that you notice in the pictures? Yeah, the cat, right? "Mrs. Graham will be furious with me," Stella moaned. Tiffany Ann was sitting on the steps, combing her hair. "Tiffany Ann," called Wally, "we're looking for Stella's library book. It's due today by 5 o'clock. Did you find it?" "Hey, great book," said Tiffany Ann. "I loved the little girl." "Where is it?" begged Stella. "I thought it might have been reported missing," Tiffany Ann said. "So I gave it to Officer Tim when he walked by." Okay, so we got another hint. She loved the little girl. Think about what story this could be. Stella ran all the way to the police station with Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Cat's still there, right? "Officer Tim! Officer Tim!" yelled Tiffany Ann. "Do you still have that book I gave you? It's Stella's, and it absolutely must get to the library by 5 o'clock. Negative," said Officer Tim. "I was on my way to return it, but I stopped by Wanda Lynn's diner to apprehend a cup of coffee and accidentally left it there. Interesting book, though. A classic case of unlawful entry. Better check the premises to see if it's still there." Unlawful entry. That means someone is breaking into someone's home. Stella ran fast and furious to Wanda Lynn's diner with Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Mrs. Graham won't let me check out a book ever again, Stella fretted. Wanda Lynn, barked Officer Tim. Have you seen a library book? I was here a minute ago, she said. Loved the part about the porridge. Do you know what book it is yet? But where is it now? Pleaded Stella. It's due at the library by 5 o'clock. You know how Mrs. Graham hates late books. Sorry, honey lamb, Wanda Lynn said. I seem to remember Sal from the fix-it shop picking it up. Stella ran pell-mell to Sal's fix-it shop with Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Sal! Sal! Shouted Wanda Lynn. Where is that book you picked up? Stella must get it back to the library by 5 o'clock. Riveting book, Sal said, especially when that chair was broken. Please, oh please, begged Stella. Say you still have it here. I'm afraid not, Sal said. Morty from the Bed Bazaar asked to borrow it. So if you figured out what story it is by now, think about the person who has it next. Morty from the Bed Bazaar. So what might he say about that story? Stella ran to the Bed Bazaar with Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Morty, called Sal. We've got a problem. That book you borrowed is Stella's and it's due at the library no later than 5 o'clock today. Morty shook his head. A baby carried it off not 10 minutes ago. We just might be able to catch her. She's headed west on Elm Street with her mother. It was a terrific book, Morty raved as he joined the crowd. I love the part where the little girl tries out the beds. Stella moaned. Mrs. Graham will never believe this. Stella ran on Elm Street with Morty and Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Again, cat's still there. It was now 3 o'clock. Stop! Stop! Shouted Morty when they saw a baby carriage up ahead. We need that book back. Stella's got to have it back to the library by 5 o'clock. The mother turned around. I'm so sorry, dear, she said to Stella. It was a lovely book, especially the part about the nap. We gave it to a trustworthy troop of scouts headed south on Sycamore Street. What if I'm banned from the library? Sobbed Stella. The baby, too, began to cry. Stella ran south on Sycamore Street with the baby and the mother, Morty and Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. 2 blocks later, they spied the scouts. Hey, wait up, yelled the baby's mother. There's been a mistake. That library book is Stella's, and it's due by 5 o'clock today. The weary scouts were returning from a long nature walk. We don't have it, said the exhausted scout leader. It was a good one, though, especially when the bears finally returned home. The scouts all nodded. We left it with Duff Morton. He stopped off at the park to work on his bug badge. I'll never get to read a library book again, whined Stella. Stella ran willy-nilly toward the park with a troop of scouts, the baby and the mother, Morty and Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. It was now 4 o'clock. So how much more time does she have before she has to return it? 1 hour. Good. Duff, quick, shouted the scout leader. Hand over that book. It has to get to the library by 5 o'clock. Duff looked up from his magnifying glass. Aha, he said. Excellent book, especially when the bears discovered that girl. But I gave it to Miss Flynn, the gym teacher, when she ran by. She was headed north. Look at all of the people now looking for this book. Stella now ran north with Duff Morton, the troop of scouts, the baby and mother, Morty and Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. Stop! Shouted Duff when Miss Flynn was in sight. Stella has to return that library book by 5 o'clock. But I don't have it, said Miss Flynn, still jogging. I loved the ending, though, when that little girl ran through the forest. I left the book on a bench at the corner of 10th and Walnut. Maybe it's still there. I'll probably have to turn in my library card, sobbed Stella, still leading the way. So Stella ran to the corner of 10th and Walnut with Miss Flynn, Duff Morton, the troop of scouts, the baby and mother, Morty and Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father close behind. But when they arrived there, the bench was empty. Everyone searched from top to bottom. Stella's book simply wasn't there. What they did discover, though, was that the bench at 10th and Walnut was smack dab in front of the library. It was 10 minutes till 5 o'clock. I guess that's it, Stella said, choking back tears. It's gone. I might as well go ahead and confess to Mrs. Graham. She will never, ever forgive me. Poor Stella. I can relate to her because a few of us have had our library books be late or missing, and then we're so nervous. We don't want to have to tell the librarian we don't have it, so I can definitely relate to how she's feeling. Stella now walked as slow as molasses into the library with, well, everyone close behind her. She thought about turning around and running, but it was no use. Mrs. Graham would track her down eventually. Then all too soon, Stella was at the front desk. She couldn't bear to look Mrs. Graham in the eye. Wonderful Mrs. Graham, who had story hour every Saturday. Wonderful Mrs. Graham, who always helped her find books. Wonderful Mrs. Graham, whom she was about to disappoint terribly. I've lost my library book, Stella whispered at last, trying not to cry. I'm so very sorry. Mrs. Graham smiled mysteriously, pulling something from under the counter. For some strange reason, this was on the bench outside, she said. My book, Stella yelled. You found it! Joyful shouts burst from Stella's friends, and there was an excited buzz as everyone recalled their favorite parts again. Mrs. Graham agreed with them all. What's your favorite part of the book? Stella asked her. Why, the same as with every book, Mrs. Graham said with a chuckle. My favorite part is when someone reads it. So at 5 minutes till 5 o'clock, Mrs. Graham checked out a new book to Stella, and Miss Flynn, Duff Morton, the troop of scouts, the baby and mother, Morty and Sal, Wanda Lynn, Officer Tim, Tiffany Ann, Wally, Sam, and her father were all close behind. Did you figure out what book it was that Stella LouElla's was trying to find the whole time? Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I definitely agree. And again in this book, you could see how the community all worked together and tried to help Stella to find her book. I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I did, and I will see you soon. Bye, boys and girls.